in to another edition of the USL show. Busy week of action in the league, outside of the league, tertiary to it. But I've got a strong panel with me tonight. So we'll start off with Ryan. How are you doing? He is frozen yet again, just as we worried. So Phil, how about you?
I'm doing well tonight. Choose on my.
Oh,
Or, oh no, oh no.
you just go ahead and hit us
I'll
up there, Phil. Yeah. Oh.
I'm sorry, Ryan.
Yeah, if you can't tell, Ryan is struggling on the Wi-Fi front tonight, but
he's going through it, unfortunately. No, doing good. A rare week off for Locomotive, so it was nice to be able to take in the action like in a completely objective way and just watch some good matches. Although I probably was left wanting a little more on the goals front in some of the big matchups this weekend, but no, excited to chat about it.
no, yeah, it was a somewhat defensive week. I want to start kind of outside the spectrum of the USL and kind of talk U20 World Cup, where the USL is well represented. Josh Winder is the obvious one because he's playing in the league right now, but two alumni and Gomez at right back, and then of course Diego Luna tearing it up. Any thoughts on that? Any things that you want to add on the way that the USL is contributing youth-wise there, Phil?
Yeah, it's been awesome to see them performing well in an international tournament, because I think like these youth tournaments, people always say, "Oh yeah, the US always shows up at these," and I beg to differ. Like I think there's always like something left on the table in these youth tournaments. So it's been nice to see them performing well, and yeah, the USL connections obviously make it easy to root for this team as a fan of a team in the league, and particularly with Diego Luna. I saw and retweeted the tweet earlier today of the media loves Cowell, but the streets love Luna, which was just felt so fitting for the way that Diego plays. And I mean, had an absolute great showing today against New Zealand, assisting a couple of goals and obviously playing a big part in kind of the build up more generally. So yeah, it's just been great to see him. I think particularly with what's gone on at RSL, it's nice to see him thriving in a different environment, and probably shows that maybe there's a little bit more that the MLS side could be getting out of him.
Yeah, Ryan, well, fingers crossed that you're in here. Thoughts on the U20 landscape?
Yeah, fantastic win. Obviously, today there was a great group stage, and it just really shows kind of the build that USL has had to help kind of contribute into the U20s, and that they've positioned themselves well to potentially have a semifinal appearance if things can break correctly in its next game between Uzbekistan and Uruguay. We will have an all-U quarterfinals matchup regardless of this, which I like just for the geographic oddities of everything, but yeah, this can only just be a good thing when you see so many previous U.S. men's national teams tournaments kind of fall short. We've had our documented struggles with the Olympics before. It's just nice change of pace to just see a team actually kind of performing to expectations.
Yeah, and just thinking about some of the USL alumni there, obviously the players from the independent clubs, but like Caleb Wiley, who was with Atlanta for so long, is tearing it up, and he's tearing it up in MLS as well. I think with Winder, he's maybe not impressed me relative to the other members of that back three. Like, that's not to say that he's been bad per se, but he looks a little bit timid on the ball compared to what you see from him in the league, a little bit less sure of what he's doing defensively. It's interesting to think about, given that he's somebody who's trying to make a big European move in a couple of weeks at this point. So plenty of storylines there, but I'll get a step closer to league play and go to the Open Cup at this point, where we got two huge cup sets last week. Birmingham beating Charlotte, and then Pittsburgh with that big win over Columbus. So Phil, any thoughts on the Open there?
Well, I think like with this particular panel tonight, myself and Ryan can take credit for jinxing USL teams to win, because we absolutely had no faith on the last episode and thought that this was like easy advancement, unfortunately, for the MLS sides. And Yeah, both teams. I think the first lesson is never doubt Bob Lilly in a knockout competition, and especially at home. It was very cool to see Pittsburgh pick up a win at Highmark, and just I think the reaction out of it. The league got a lot of visibility out of these victories as well, which is always nice. I hate that that's what it takes in that, it's like, hey, there's quality in this league and it's not just like the underdog story, but it is, it's always great to see those sorts of things come out of the cup. And yeah, glad that we could play our part by, reverse jinxing them in the pick'em.
Yeah, I mean, this is I think, first time since 2019 that we've had two USL championship clubs into the quarterfinals. That edition of the tournament was St. Louis FC and New Mexico United, both on opposite sides of the bracket. But what's different with this one is we are basically 2 wins away for each side of having an all USL semifinal, which is just huge for the league. And it just kind of shows I think there's a lot more quality within getting closer to MLS than a lot of the MLS clubs would like to admit. I mean, from Charlotte's point of view, they played a fairly strong starting 11. They were very intent on wanting to go for this cup, and I think for them, just ran out of gas. They've played so many matches within the past couple months that it just all came together. And when you get into these USL clubs who are playing roughly about 1 match a week at most, you're going to run into a lot of tired legs, and this is where a team's going to be primed to take advantage of that. But amazing, well done job for Birmingham and Pittsburgh, and it's just a great showing for the league once more.
I think what was notable about the Legion game is that they got like 12,000 fans into that stadium, which for them is absolutely massive. I mean, any team in the USL, I think that's the highest attendance number anyone in any competition has had in 2023 in this league. That's fantastic for growing the game in that city, getting people involved. Just speaking to the matches a little bit, you mentioned the lineups. Like, these were probably A- teams for Charlotte and Columbus, and Birmingham was about even until the red card, and they really took over. But Pittsburgh shut Columbus down. Like, they had the perfect defensive scheme to control that game. The crowd was roaring. Speaking to the attention point of it, I saw that Pat McAfee was tweeting about the Riverhounds,
Yeah.
and I just continue to wonder, like, did he know that this team existed before the Open Cup game? I lean no, but
Yeah.
good for him for bringing attention.
I mean that, like you said, I question Columbus's approach because it's like, do you guys know Bob Lilly? Like,
Yeah.
have you heard of him before? Because they just played perfectly like into his game plan, and I mean credit to Lilly and the Riverhounds for game planning so well. Also, yeah, not to take too much off of Birmingham's like shine, because I mean Prosper Kassim, like what a goal, like worthy to win any cup tie, and yeah, to go through against an MLS side that is in really good form. Obviously, the red card plays a part, but I think it's funny given the then further context of what happened in Detroit a couple nights later. But yeah, unbelievable night for Birmingham. Great for the sport, as you said, and yeah, I mean, what a goal as well for Kassim.
And I will like to point out that Messi is still currently undecided on who his next team will be. And I saw the betting odds had it at a 10% chance he could be joining Inter Miami. So we could be getting into the same season where Inter Miami will have lost to Birmingham at the same year they get Lionel Messi onto their side. And I'm just laughing at the fact that Phil Neville has to basically go to Birmingham, like probably for the first time and only time in his life that he's ever been in that city. And it just makes me think that he's probably going to be the second most notable manager to have visited Birmingham internationally, because they had a Diego Simeone when he played for Argentina in the 1996 Olympics, played a game in Birmingham as well.
This is just classic Ryan deep cut knowledge. But you mentioned the betting odds of Messi coming into Inter Miami, maybe that being the favorite club. We're proud to let you know that today we're sponsored by BetStamp, the BetStamp app, the BetStamp website. They're helping thousands of people win at sports betting for free every single day. if you think about any service that lets you compare prices, whether that be like Google Flights, Travelocity, Expedia, you can use those to compare rates, figure out what is the most advantageous for you. And bettors can use Betstamp to do the exact same thing. Basically, Betstamp collects the odds for a given game, a given USL match, from every different sports book that is offering that game. And you can see, based on what you want to pick, who is offering you the best bang for your buck, where you can win the most money. The differences can be huge, especially for a league like the USL, where guess what? The sports books don't know a ton about it. They're not really paying attention. So that's what they call line shopping. It's easily the most profitable way that you can engage with sports betting. The average Betstamp user can win up to $1,000 extra per year. So if you're interested in that, interested in making a little bit more money if you're a gambler, go check out the Betstamp app on the Apple iOS Store, Google Play, or through your browser at betstamp.app. And then to access the benefits to help us out a little bit, use that promo code USL. That's USL. And then Ryan, I know that you picked out a couple of further bets that you're eyeing for the week ahead.
Yeah, I guess two really long shot odds that I found pretty interesting was that Phoenix was at plus 334 to beat Pittsburgh on the road. Maybe they take advantage of a River Towns team who may have an Open Cup hangover. And then just because I've always been interested whenever they do post odds, I have USL 2 action with the Boston Bolts at a very long shot, 378 odds to beat the Seacoast United Phantoms. I'd mainly picked this game because both teams are on 1 point right now with no wins on the season, and think it could be a bit more even of a contest than it may give it credit for.
The work that you put in to find odds for like that league and that game, which I know you probably just came upon it, but the fact that that's out there, insane.
I'm always shocked that they post odds on USL 2 anyways.
Yeah, that it feels like very old school USL, getting onto the YouTube stream to find out the odds when you're gambling from, Sarajevo or whatever. It feels very old school in that way, but I love that.
Yeah, amazing. Before we get into recaps, I did want to throw in another shout for that Milwaukee naming contest that's going on. One I particularly liked in the past week was the Milwaukee Power. And so they're giving these one-sentence descriptions of why these names should matter. And I kid you not, the actual copy from the team is like the mitochondria of a cell will be the new power of the USL Championship. So kudos Milwaukee for bringing out the old memes from the dead there.
I was going to say just copy pasta, like absurd.
Well, at that point, just be the Milwaukee mitochondria.
Yeah. Let's just
cut out the middleman.
Exactly. The Milwaukee Power. That's funny. It reminds me of The Simpsons. Max Power.
There's an IndyCar driver, Willpower.
Willpower, yeah.
That's one of my favorite sports names of all time.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, so beyond the inanity of whatever they're doing up in Milwaukee, we love you with that. But let's continue on with that Legion train of thought that we were on, because despite the fact that they're killing it in the Open Cup, they cannot buy a win in the league, and they went into Keyworth and lost 1-0. So love some thoughts on that game.
It felt like the word that came to mind, like watching this one, was naive. Like it just felt like a performance where you know exactly what this Detroit City team offers. You know exactly how they're going to try to hurt you, and they know that they've had their offensive struggles. And granted, the goal, once again, Detroit City win off a worldy, like Maxi Rodriguez's goal is unbelievable. But unlike Detroit's last win, where it was they got the goal and just really shut up shop and didn't really offer any threat the rest of the game, Detroit continuously threatened in this one, which to me just highlights the downside of this Legion team, which is that just that inability to really like shut anybody down. Just every game that they get into feels like the other team has plenty of chances. And I know we've talked in the past, and John, you've highlighted like their fullbacks in particular, and it just felt like they were constantly getting caught up the field, and Detroit City just constantly had these options to counterattack, and the out ball was just always there. And yeah, for Legion, it's pretty disappointing, just given the fact that they clearly, they got it right in the Open Cup, and then they got it really, really wrong when they went to Keyworth. And granted, it's a 1-0 loss. It's not the end of the world, but at the same time, it could have been worse for Legion, even if, yeah, Detroit are a little lucky with the 1 goal line clearance as well. But yeah, overall, it just felt like a disappointing performance, because Detroit gave Legion exactly what everybody knew they would, and it was enough.
I mean, we're looking at the Detroit team who's now got 2 shutout victories against San Antonio and Birmingham back to back. I think it still reiterates how tough of a place Keyworth is to go in and play and try and get a result. And now they have a game up against Charleston next on the road. And this was a stretch of games that after Detroit had lost 5-1 to Tampa Bay, that we were kind of all thinking, it's like, okay, this is kind of what the second season syndrome we're expecting Detroit to kind of come back to. And they're still kind of on the edge of the playoff spot right now, with just 1 point outside of the top 8 in the Eastern Conference and 2 wins on the balance, is at least trying to turn a corner. But yeah, for Birmingham Legion, this is obviously a very disappointing result. It's the first time in league in their club history that they've lost 5 consecutive games, and it's their worst run of games since the first year they played in 2019. And this is kind of a concern moving forward, because they've kind of taken themselves out of what could have been a battle for a top 3 spot in the Eastern Conference.
And this was a Birmingham team that, I mean, a month and a half ago maybe was in first place in the East. Looked like they had a ton of momentum. Something that Kaler on the hammering down side of things has been pointing out is the fact that Tommy Sohn can't really decide on what he wants in that lineup. This was a Birmingham team that used a very tight rotation last year. They basically had 14 players that contributed regularly, which is unsustainable on the face of it. But they've gone a lot more expansive with the way that they're using their roster, and almost all of the extra players aren't hitting for them right now. I think Detroit took particular advantage of that, certainly in the game, and that's a credit to Trevor James. The way that Lai Diop, who typically plays as the deepest lying holding midfielder in that side, was pressing up with the forward line to make a front 3 against one of Birmingham's inexperienced central defenders in build, was really inspired in particular. So the Legion have problems right now for sure. I trust that talent. I trust Sohn enough to get right, and they've got a built-in edge over the fact that probably 7 through 10 in the East are kind of dire all at the same time. But I mean, again, credit Detroit. They do have 4 shots on target in the past 2 weeks, and they've converted on half of them. Do with that what you will. But that Maxi Rodriguez goal, if you haven't seen it, he recovers his own cleared set piece, dribbles through like 8 guys and outside of the boot into the far side of the netting. Insane. Should be the goal of the week. So stunning stuff there.
I mean, it's Monterey Bay levels of conversion.
Yeah.
Who do they think they are? Christian Valesky? No, I mean, yeah, the Maxi goal you can't really say enough about, because it is just one of those. And yeah, the way it pings off the far post and back across, that's just satisfying to watch. And obviously Keyworth loving every minute of it. And at the end of the day, wins are wins, and that's two quality wins in a row, despite the fact that you can have your arguments about how the San Antonio game played out. But yeah, putting points on the board at least, which is an improvement over where they were.
Yeah,
and it
absolutely.
will probably benefit them just having the top 8. And like you had mentioned, John, there are just so many teams below them who are having basically a crisis of the week, as it seems. I mean, you look at Loudon, but just they may have a chance to kind of break a, I wouldn't say a curse, just kind of a historical trend, was that every team last year who had at least a 5-game losing streak, none of them made the playoffs. So I think Birmingham will ultimately be fine, just kind of based off of what they've built. But I would still kind of be finding the panic button right now if they're not turning things around quick enough. And a cup run could very well paper over a lot of cracks that are forming.
I'm going to just pivot a minute. You brought up Loudon, who cannot buy a win. Speaking of teams in bad form right now, what I hate about their run is that it pretty perfectly coincides with DC United recalling Gasu Samake on loan up to the senior side and then sending down Hayden Sargis, which is the most classic MLS2 era Loudon move that you could think of. And I think Samake was kind of vital to what they were doing. He's lightning fast on the flank. He's very good covering for their almost luxurious wingers who are very offensive minded. And when you throw that out of balance, this team has just cratered. They lost to Pittsburgh on Sunday, in admittedly what was a good performance from them. But I mean, talk about another team in bad form right now.
Yeah, and certainly not. I mean, in this season, having that still happen is just so, it's just so wild because it's like they finally cut the cord and it's still going to have a huge say in how the rest of their season plays out.
Right.
I mean, like 6 losses in a row was something we expected from Loudon of last year and something they didn't have last year. And just, it's so like after the hype of the season that they had to start the year with wins over Birmingham and picking up a 1-1 draw with San Antonio, it just seems like things have just kind of dropped off a cliff. My ego ratings have just kind of shown the same thing. And now they have Monterey Bay next, which we know how Monterey Bay can be. It could get kind of ugly for that. This was just so disheartening, and it's all Wayne Rooney's fault.
Yeah, I mean, hey, that's kind of true. Moving down the short trip from Keyworth down to Carroll Stadium in Indy, we had a big rivalry game, and Loose Indy ends up winning 1-0 over Indy 11, recovering from the midweek loss there from Loose City. But thoughts on the LIPAFC game there, Phil?
Yeah, I mean, this Indy team, I don't know what it is. Like they just can't put it together. Like they played well, I thought. Like they put in a good performance. They created a decent amount against this Lou City side. Probably deserved something from the game. And in the end, for it to be a poorly defended set piece like that undoes you, it's just not the hallmarks of a good team. Like, and that's what's really frustrating, I guess, about this Indy side is it's like they have all the they have all the tools, it seems, and every week it feels like we're picking the bones out of an Indy loss where it's like, what went wrong here? And I mean, not that much, but it's just you can't give up a goal like that to Louisville and expect to come away with anything. And there's something is up with Sebastian Gonzatti and Douglas Martinez, like passing when they should be shooting, taking extra touches. Like the confidence is not there. And it's brutal. It makes for brutal watching because I mean, there were all of the ingredients there for like a really pulsating rivalry game and a good performance from Indy, and they couldn't produce any end product, which is unfortunately becoming like the theme of the season of they just can't score consistently.
Yeah, I mean, only 2 games this year they've scored multiple goals, and in one of those games they lost to Monterey. You have to go all the way back to the end of last season when, ironically, they did pick up one against Louisville to find the last time they strung together 2 consecutive wins, which is kind of concerning for their form. I mean, this was an opportunity after beating Colorado Springs last week to pick up a home victory in a rivalry match, and they just couldn't get the result done. And now they have to travel to Charleston this weekend, a Battery team who's sitting atop the conference right now, and that's no easy feat for them to do.
The thing for Indy was they came out with that very classic Lowry shape, that sort of 4-3-3, 4-4-2 diamond-ish look. And I think it was like 2 minutes into the game that Yunus Budati goes down with an injury. Yeah. They move into this back three with Gustavo Rissi, who's very right-footed as the left wing back, and he could not put in a cross to save his life. And it hurt Indy's offense for a lot of this. Speaking to that whole Gonzatti, Douglas Martinez thing, I feel like every time Gonzatti gets a touch, he's basically at the center circle. Like, he's coming so deep if he wants to get involved with the game. He's not showing that ability to kind of ride the back shoulder of the defense and get those touches in dangerous areas. And then halfway through, like Lowry brings on Roberto Molina as an actual left wing back. You start to see an improvement in the midfield, and then it's too little, too late. And we're underplaying the fact that Louisville did look good for a good portion of this game. Like
For
they
sure.
had good strategy on the set pieces. They ran the same set piece twice in a row, and then Adrian Diz just couldn't clear it. So I mean, Wilson Harris goal, and that's that. Credit to them in a busy week as well, where they had that tough game in Tulsa a couple days prior. But I mean, yeah, Indy, they just cannot get any consistency this year.
And it feels like talking about the Gonzatti thing, just the fact that the shape and the approach isn't a million miles away from like what Tampa did. And so it's just so strange to see it like not work the way that it's supposed to. And it just doesn't, he's not getting service from wide areas like he, so often did in Tampa. And for him to have to drop deep when they have ostensibly a 10, like it just doesn't make any sense. And there's just something broken about what is going on in Indy. And I don't know how to fix it. Like which is like, I guess the weirder part is there's nothing glaringly wrong aside from it's just not ticking along the way that you'd imagine with the likes of Blake and company in that central and Quinn in that central midfield.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, you say like they have a 10. They've got 3 of the best creative midfielders in the league, and then Solomon Asante, and they're not able to generate chances. It's crazy.
Yeah, make it make sense.
Yeah,
and I think ultimately,
go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I think ultimately with this game is you're going to see, like you had mentioned, John, like it was like 7 through 12 in the Eastern Conference just all have their fair share of problems right now. That we're going to get to the end of the postseason that we're going to basically award 2 playoff spots to teams who have been the least bad by the time we get around to it. But even just looking ahead to Louisville's schedule for the rest of June, they could find themselves going on a run like we see them do every summer. It seems like that right when we get into like the dog days of summer, Louisville always puts together quietly just a run that kind of boosts them into the top 2 of the conference every year. I mean, you have Hartford, Memphis, Phoenix, Las Vegas, and Pittsburgh to get you to July 1st, which could very well have a few tough games in there between Pittsburgh and Memphis, who've both been in pretty decent form lately. But this is a Louisville team who could quickly kind of, the one Tulsa defeat midweek aside, they've been on pretty good form.
No, and that's a good point. A team that people thought was going to be a contender started the season like a contender, but quietly is kind of sputtering at the moment would be San Diego out west. They lost to RGV a couple weeks ago, and now they're off a 2-0 loss to the Oakland Roots, and Oakland up to 5th in that conference. So thoughts on a big game out west? And Ryan, you can kick it off.
Yeah, just kind of not really what you would expect from San Diego, a team that we were all pretty high on coming into the year, and we all kind of had a little bit of question marks around Oakland, but they've now dropped 7 points behind Sacramento, and I get Sacramento's kind of been the class of the conference and of the league this year, and it's going to be tough to catch them. But this was a team who basically kind of started the year kind of keeping in pace with what San Antonio had done, because both sides were just one loss in their first 7 games to begin the season, and since then they haven't been able to string together consecutive wins since those first 2 games of the year.
I think in addition to I don't know, this feels like kind of 6-1 where it's like we have San Diego underperforming in this one, and I think they're struggling to find consistency with the big names that were supposed to be the real difference makers. Like bringing back Corona and Damos like felt like such a boon for a Loyal team that was already well put together, and I think rate a lot of the players that turn out for Loyal. So I think it's one of those things where it's like, again, the names make sense, and there just has been a little bit something off about them not, Damas and Corona not consistently starting, like kind of leaning on the other names. And then on the other hand, like I think Roots have something here. Like, I really do think, like, I'm starting to really come around on this Roots team, and some of the stuff that they're doing in terms of not just trotting out kind of what's worked in the past to get them in the playoffs. They're trying new things. I mean, Memo Diaz in attack, which, you know, he's been playing fullback for the last few years in the league, and now he assists the opener. You know, and obviously there's a little bit of probably bad defending going on, a little bit of a misclearance, but and Oakland is converting chances, which is not something that they could always say, aside from, you know, their Venezia Loney last year. Like, he was basically all of their goals, and now they are getting a goal, you know, goals from a spread of players. And I think just overall, like, this Oakland team is impressing me more than I thought. And Loyal just has struggled for that consistency where they, you know, they are constantly like putting together they'll win and then immediately lose and win and immediately, like, they're just on this pattern right now where they're just struggling for a little bit of consistency, and it seems like it's coming from some of the personnel decisions too. So, but I like what Oakland's doing.
Yeah, Nate Miller has this tendency to constantly rotate that team. They basically never trot out the same midfield or back line 2 games in a row. They've had health problems in the forward line, but they're changing there too. And it's not like if you switch out Joe Corona that you should crater. Like, Alejandro Guido is one of the most talented midfielders in the league, honestly, with the ball at his feet. You can put Colin Martin or Charlie Adams at the 6 and be completely okay. There's something to be said for settling on, if not a best 11, something closer to a consistent starting lineup, just to get some of those patterns down, to get some familiarity with your teammates. And boy, that's discredit to the Roots, who, as you mentioned, seem like they're pretty for real. My expected goals numbers have them one of the top 6 or 7 teams in the league right now in terms of just overall margin. What they've done tactically, you hit the nail on the head, where this was a team that played with a back three and the most aggressive wingbacks in the history of the world, basically, in 2022. And they've taken on a much more moderate approach. Edgardo Rito has moved to this kind of hybrid right wing, right fullback position. Memo Diaz has been awesome on the left as well. They've had some injuries at striker, but they've found ways to replace that, even though they're not really like scoring for fun. Their back line even so talented right now. They had a depth where it mattered. They've innovated tactically. There's a tendency to kind of just think of them as the team that's going to come on late and end up as the 8 seed and maybe cause a little bit of trouble upsetting somebody in the first round. But they feel like there's a little more meat on the bone this season, for my taste.
Yeah, and even to Oakland's just credit, they have 50% of the number of wins that the Oakland Athletics have had at home this year as well. So just as a comparison, but to look kind of towards what San Diego have ahead, their next 4 games are no easy task. I mean, it benefits them that they're getting these games out of the way now and that they have an easier kind of July and August there. But I mean, San Antonio on the road, host Sacramento, host San Antonio, and then travel to Pittsburgh. That's 4 games of teams who are just, that's no easy task to go up against. And I think we could be in for a very difficult stretch of games for the Loyal.
Yeah, that's about as brutal as you can get with a stretch. We'll move on in just a second. I did want to shout out that they had Duran Ferry in goal in this last game. He's another one of those rising prospects in the USL landscape. Really good with the ball at his feet for a goaltender. Really reactive with his saves. He's somebody to watch. And he was nominated for Save of the Week, and I would not put him at fault for either goal. So, fun thing to note there. But we're going to stay sort of West Coasty, but move down to League One with what was kind of a really crazy result as Northern Colorado beats Central Valley Fuego 4-1, and they scored all 4 of those goals in the first half in just a rout. So love to get some thoughts there.
Yeah, it's like one of those things where I think them beating Central Valley handily wasn't necessarily that shocking. The manner in which it happened was definitely weird. A couple of penalties, like or the one penalty, I guess. And some really good finishes from Northern Colorado. I think, like, I was guilty up until this point of having not watched much of the hailstorm. And
I feel like that's the first time we've said the word hailstorm on the podcast all season.
Yeah, I hadn't watched much, and I think again, similar to, I think the tide has been changing with them recently of talking about them as kind of like, hey, they've gotten some interesting results, to now like, hey, they're probably in the conversation as one of the better teams in the league. I really enjoy what they do, and that putting Fuego to the sword, it can happen, but yeah, to absolutely come out and blitz them and end the game like in the first 45 was really impressive from Northern Colorado.
Yeah, I mean, needless to say, this is the first time probably in club history they've scored 4 first half goals. And then, I mean, just looking back through their stats from last season, they had a 4-goal triumph against North Carolina and Central Valley Fuego again. And yeah, Northern, what a way to open up your home stadium after so much of time just wandering around to different venues to kind of get that result. And to be 4th in the league right now, coming off of 3 consecutive wins, they're a team, I think, is going to be kind of like what Union Omaha was last year, that they're just going to quietly keep doing their thing, and they're just going to find their way into the postseason until they're found out, or they're just going to keep kind of slowly moving up the table. They have those 3 games in hand, and they're only 5 points off the leaders right now. This could be a very quick kind of, they're going to catch up to the leaders soon.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing with their points per game pace is that they're unmatched right now in League One. Like the form they're in. I put out the projection model every week for League One and the championship, and they're the only team I have as a lock for the playoffs right now, based on what they put in and the form that they're playing at. Trevor Amon up top has been on fire. He's got 7 goals already and is scoring for fun. They're a team that I to speak to Phil's point, we pretty much have referenced them twice when they've got their Open Cup upsets against the Switchbacks and Arthur Rogers has gone off. But there's a lot to like there. It's full credit to Eamon Zayed, the manager, and an Indy 11 legend if you're an Indy fan who's down after listening to the first chunk of this pod. I do want to say, Fuego, 7 points from 9 games played is dire. So from that, we'll pivot to a little bit more of a competitive game in League One, but probably equally crazy. And that was Omaha falling 2-1 against Madison. Just the note here, Omaha outshot Madison 21-3, and the expected goals were 2.5 to 0.7, but League One gonna League One. So what you thinking about that?
I think for anyone who follows Michael Cayley for his XG analytics on Twitter, this would be an nevertheless type result. And God, the Madison, the easy button here is that like Madison have been impressive, and it's another impressive result, especially on the road, like to get the win. And they can definitely count themselves lucky here. The quality of the goals from Madison in this one, it's off the charts. Aiden Macias, the former QPR youngster, like scoring an absolute banger for the opener, and then Christian Chaney, outside of the boot, just one of those that, just shaking your head, puts it right in the top corner. So the goals were worthy of winning the game. Omaha, like supremely unlucky, and I think, Ryan, you talked about Omaha of last year being like the, kind of the workman, like they just went about their business and continuously kind of picked up results. And I would say this season is almost the opposite, where it's like they kind of go about their business and are toiling with less success. So yeah, I feel for Omaha fans in this one, because they definitely deserved something out of this game. But the quality from Madison, I think it's different than what we've seen in past years, where that was probably Madison's biggest drawback, is their conversion and their ability to kind of get goals when they needed them. And yeah, now they're that team that is doing enough to get by, and they're finding those kind of wonder goals when they need them.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about Northern Colorado. Madison also has just one loss to begin the year. This is their first victory over Union Omaha in the league since 2021. And again, just the same kind of games in hand that they're going to find themselves moving continually up the table, and it's just going to be to their benefit. I mean, just looking ahead on the schedule, I think with Northern Colorado, it's going to be not until kind of later in the year that they play Madison, but that's a game I think all of us would really want to see. But yeah, it's clearly a good result from a team that we've been pretty high on for their defense. I know Kaler had said that this is the best defense in USL 1 right now, and to survive that kind of onslaught of shots after shot for Union Omaha, it's just a more testament to the credit that they're doing there.
Yeah, sometimes better to be lucky than good in defense, and I think that proved it there. Unless y'all had any other notes on the week that was, we can go ahead and get rolling with the predictions for next week. Really good slate of games yet again. We're going to start off with Pittsburgh hosting Phoenix Rising. Pittsburgh, obviously, we've talked about both of their games in passing. Phoenix, fresh off, they're the first team to lose to Las Vegas this year. So notorious for that, but love to get a pick and some analysis of this matchup. Oh, we'll start with Phil.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my bad.
No, you're good. You're good. I went with Pittsburgh. I feel like Bob was trying to teach me a lesson picking against them in the Open Cup at home. And this Phoenix team hasn't convinced me of their credentials like quite to a point of me being able to confidently pick them to win on the road on the East Coast. So yeah, I think this is a win for Pittsburgh. A typical Riverhounds performance of they probably grind something out, maybe like a 2-0 or something like that.
Yeah, Ryan, how you feeling?
Yeah, I'm backing the Riverhounds to win this one. They're one of 3 teams right now who are currently unbeaten in their last 5 within the league. And after doubting what Buffalo did last week against Columbus, I think it's just really tough to pick against the Riverhounds in this one just based off their own form. And even mentioning with Phoenix and taking East Coast trips, like their last one out here was that loss to Tampa Bay, and then prior to that they had the loss to Birmingham. I just think just going all the way out to Pittsburgh is going to be a tough ask for them, that they don't walk away with 3 points. So I'm back in the Riverhounds.
Yeah, I mean, Phoenix is a team, if you watch that game against Las Vegas, so much of what they were doing in build-up was great. I thought they defended very well for the most part. And then they got to the final third, and Danny Trejo is so far away from the areas where he's dangerous. Quietly, Fede Varela has been one of the bigger flops of the season after Phoenix fans and members of the Phoenix front office were like sending me DMs saying that he has Messi numbers, which, man, that's a bad take in hindsight. But
Armonakis, best player in the league type beat.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
His dad is big on that. But I don't know. I just feel like Phoenix has enough going right. I think Pittsburgh is so heavily reliant on Albert Dickwa for goals much of the time. I have this as a draw, but gun to my head, Pittsburgh wins, but the USL is wacky. Next up, I want to talk about what's absolutely, without a doubt, the best game of the weekend. Tampa Bay Rowdies, red hot, hosting the Sacramento Republic.
I have this down as a draw. Tampa Bay, 5 straight wins, so it's not safe money necessarily, even though Sac Republic, obviously the form, they have been the best team in the West, defensively unbelievable. But yeah, this one just feels like a deadlock to me, despite the fact that Sacramento's traveling. And I think we really will get a test of Sacramento's credentials in a trip to Al Lang. Like, can you do it on a hot, muggy night in Tampa or St. Petersburg, I guess I should say. And so I have it down as a draw. And I think this is one where Sacramento just frustrate Tampa Bay, despite the fact that they've been rolling.
Yeah, this is one of those games that you almost wish happened later in the season just for the sheer quality and talent that both of these teams have, that they're just like, you want this to almost be like a warm up for the postseason because you know both of these teams are going to be highly ranked and they'll probably be hosting their own playoff games as well. But I have this one going down as a draw. If you're looking back at kind of previous results, you need to go all the way back to the first game of the year to find Sacramento's last victory away from home, and that was against El Paso. And Tampa Bay in this kind of game, 6-run stretch of games where they have basically 5 of them at home, have currently won. They've won about Colorado Springs, Detroit, and Phoenix, which I think it'll make for a very difficult environment to go into. But I still think it'll be enough that it's competitive, but the points will be shared.
Yeah, I ended up at a draw as well. Tampa Bay, the way that they handled a team that plays like Sacramento light in terms of kind of that 3-4-3, 3-4-2, they shut down Colorado Springs and didn't give them anything in that matchup. And to Sacramento's credit, they went on the road to Hartford and just curb stomped them. Like they were not even challenged. It was a 4-1 win, I think, and the one was kind of a consolation goal. It's an interesting matchup where I think this Tampa Bay press is pretty uniquely set up to defend against what the Republic have been so successful at doing this season. But I know Mark Briggs is smart enough to make the necessary adjustments. So I'm here for the chess match. I'm here for some of the highest quality soccer we're going to see. And I think it cancels each other out for a draw at the end of the day. We're going close to home for you, Phil, now. A New Mexico team that is sort of stop start against El Paso, fresh off a bye.
Yeah, this one is always tough. I did pick an El Paso win because I think form suggests it, and El Paso have been really good on the road this year, which I have never been able to say. The one thing here is rivalry game in Albuquerque. It always produces like something. Like there's always something about these matches, like casting your mind back to Matt Boehner with the equalizer deep in stoppage time and the home run, the walk-off home run celebration, all that sort of stuff. There's a lot in this matchup that kind of suggest, I know it's a cliche, but form goes out the window, that sort of thing. In this matchup, I know a lot of people from El Paso are going to be making the trip up to Albuquerque as well. So yeah, looking forward to the match. I think El Paso win by virtue of they've got a consistent approach, and I don't know that there's a manager in USL right now that does as good a job of game planning for his next opponent than Brian Clairhout, at least at the moment, and so I trust him to get it right against a New Mexico side that has really struggled to kind of find what their approach is actually going to be. And yeah, even in their wins, they haven't super impressed me. So back in El Paso to get the 3 points.
Yeah, I'm going with El Paso on this one as well. If you have to look back at historical just head-to-head matchups, it's the start of last season, the second game of the year that El Paso last lost to New Mexico. And honestly, if you're looking at New Mexico right now, there isn't a team in the league right now who has a more difficult 2-game stretch, as they have to play El Paso this week and then play Tampa Bay next week, the 2 informed teams of the league right now. And even when you're looking at El Paso, they have San Antonio kind of waiting in the wing after this one. But I still think Locomotive have a lot more of the talent with them right now, a lot more of the momentum that they just go into Albuquerque and get a result.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough place to play New Mexico no matter what. I mean, the baseball field doesn't help anybody, but it's a good crowd on top of that. You talk about Colorado Springs as the team at elevation, but Albuquerque has that exact same effect. That said, I am not a fan of what New Mexico is really doing. They seem to spite themselves with their team selection almost every week, where you just want them to play with one iota of width and try to get involved across the width of the pitch, and then they throw 3 or 4 center backs into that squad no matter what, just because. I trust what they're doing though, because you get those moments of magic. They've got Amando Moreno or Chris Wehan who can just pull out a goal out of nowhere. And El Paso, while I love what they're doing, go check out that Brian Clarehout interview with Backheel if you're interested. Um, I don't think that they can keep winning every single game, so I'm going with a draw here against my better judgment. Yeah, Phil shrugging no at that, but
No, I mean it totally, they can't win every game. Like that is that is objectively true. Like they're not gonna win every week as much as I want to believe that they'll never lose again. So yeah.
yeah. And hey, speaking of teams that are gonna try to lose every single game, we've got Orange County and RGV as our next pick'em.
Picking a draw didn't feel sufficient for this. It's like, how do I pick both teams to lose? Like that's just not I couldn't find the right approach. I went for a draw in this. I feel like it just feels like one of those classic like cancel each other out sort of games. The only thing, and I don't know, hindsight, I feel like RGV is maybe the smarter pick, but I'm going for draw. Orange County just don't score for whatever reason. Now they've changed things up to the point where Milano, like their one bright spot from last season, is nullified in Milano-Lasky. RGV have gotten Cristiano Francois scoring goals at a somewhat consistent rate, so maybe there's a better shout for RGV to win this one, but there's something about RGV on the road that I just inherently don't trust, so I went for a draw.
I'm almost disappointed that it's Orange County hosting this first meeting, because this is an Orange County team who has not won yet away from home this year, and an RGV team who has not won yet at home this year. So I'm very disappointed this game's in California. But just given all of that, I really do think this game's going to end up being a draw. It really depends on which RGV team kind of shows up. Is it the one who can go into Keyworth and get a result, or is it the one that's going to get blanked by Pittsburgh River Hounds as well? And even with Orange County, they got the win over Sacramento as one of their last two recent results at home. And it's a tough game to really pick, but I think it's going to end up being a draw.
Yeah, just speaking to Alaski, he's got 45% of Orange County's goals this year. It's just that they don't score goals, really. This is another team, I know we just mentioned it with New Mexico, that cannot decide on a system or a lineup to save their life right now. On the other hand, I don't think I'm further out on a team than RGV at this point. Like, at least when you watch a Las Vegas game, you can think, God, Andrew Carlton's mullet looks terrible, or something like that. And then the Toros just play this negative style. They don't want to do what makes them a good team, which is push the tempo and press you hard. I've got OC winning this one, but yeah, this feels like a meteor might hit the stadium at halftime kind of game. And we've got one more pick on the slate here, which will actually star some good soccer, and that would be the Greenville Triumph against South Georgia Tormenta.
Yeah, I have this one down as a draw, but for I think different reasons. These are two teams, like Tormenta, just not in good form, but you just feel like at some point there's a turn coming for them, and that they're gonna figure it out. Similarly, like Greenville have been pretty spotty. One win in 5, a couple of like really exciting draws with Richmond and Omaha in there. So I think I'm sticking with the trend more so, I guess, if you can call it that. But Greenville and Tormenta not to fully take advantage and to draw. But I do think it'll be an entertaining game.
Yeah, whenever these teams play each other, you're always kind of in for at least a competitive game. Everyone always jumps back to the 5-5 result they had from last season. You have to go back to the first game of the year to find the last time Triumph was shut out in a match at home. So I would definitely try and pick the over on goals for this one. But I'm actually backing Greenville to get a result in this one. They've scored multiple goals in 2 of their last 3 games. And I think it's just something that with Tormenta still having somewhat inconsistent form, they still haven't strung together consecutive wins, I think, this year. I think it's just something that Greenville can take advantage of.
Yeah, Greenville, On the sly, on pretty heavy rest coming into this one. Their last game will have been that wild 3-3 draw against Omaha, which was last Wednesday at this point. I'm up and down on what they're doing form wise. I'm very here for the Leo Castro explosion that they're getting, but the defense is so leaky compared to what basically every other iteration of this team that's existed. Tormenta was unlucky not to get a win in their last game. They doubled Richmond on shots. I thought their offense looked quite good. They're getting so much from their fullbacks right now, Davy Mason, Akoto on either side. I think that's going to stretch out a Greenville team that just doesn't quite have it figured out. So I've got a Tormenta win on the road. And per usual, I'm feeling kind of about it.
I am laughing too about the fact that about half of the USL show pick'em locked one or the other team in this matchup, which was just really funny to me, because to me this was the toughest one to pick. So
Yeah, it was
I'm laughing at it.
And Tyler both locked Tormenta, Geo locked Greenville, but we have basically 4 people who picked Tormenta to win, 2 who picked Greenville, and then 1 who picked a draw, which is about as split as you can get all of us across these results to do.
Yeah, so I'm loving how confidently people were picking winners in this one, which was one of the toughest to call for me.
Man, I didn't want to touch this game with a 10-foot pole. I just had nothing going with it. But yeah, I mean, this is why we're terrible at the predictions, I guess. But
you say we like you aren't just running away with with the prediction.
Yeah, I mean, that's not like I'm very good at it at the same time.
This is like,
fair,
yeah.
Of your locks this season, John, you've only missed 2, and I think you've got your last 5 lock picks correct.
There we go. Okay, well, that's good news for San Diego this week, if I recall correctly.
I'm the only one this season who missed an entire slate of games, and then of course Oakland Memphis had to be postponed that week that I couldn't have any sort of redemption, and I don't know how I'm still second.
See, Ryan wearing the PSG kit tonight is fitting because this pick'em is about as competitive as Liga 1. So
here, I think since we haven't shared it online in a while, I guess I'll just kind of share the standings for everyone. But yeah, it's John in first on 71 points. I'm in second on 53. Phil is in third on 44 to round out the podium. Alan is in fourth on 41, Geo in fifth on 38, and then we have a tie for sixth between Kaylor and Tyler on 24.
I've got a pretty good shot at shoring up a European place here. So
we haven't dropped down the allocation order yet, so we're still about fourth in coefficients.
I feel like Kaylor projects so much confidence with this, and then here's the guy just riding last place.
Yeah.
To be fair, the last few weeks have been very good for us. The last 4 weeks, no one lost points.
Wow.
In fact, this past week was our highest performing week, I think, that we've done this entire season in terms of points earned.
This is yeah, we're putting something together as a group.
We're the best USL podcast that there is.
One of these weeks, I need to just figure out like everyone's collective picks, see if we could do like what Formula One does as like, okay, if we combined everyone's lap into one, what's like the ideal lap, and just see, like, okay, what person like can we do is like the ideal thought process to have like the most betting outcomes.
Just pivoting away from that, one more thing before we get to the wrap up here. Have y'all been following the soccer tournament and the rosters that they've been announcing? So just for context for anyone listening, the basketball tournament is a pretty prize money laden thing that happens every year where you form a team. Often it's like everyone who graduated from Syracuse or whatever, and they just go play a tournament for money. And there's a soccer tournament version of it this year. I know there's like a Cincinnati team with a ton of former FC Cincy guys from the USL era, and then Chad Ochocinco. There's a North Carolina FC alumni team. you've got fun ones like a Wolverhampton team, like West Ham starring like Matt Jarvis and everything. Cesc Fabregas is out there for some reason. Like this is kind of crazy, and it's happening at NCFC's venue. So just wondering if you had any thoughts or opinions on that.
If I wasn't working, I would certainly be up there. I mean, they have of YouTube fame, #United is there. The one thing that I thought was surprising was I think for West Ham's team, it has, he's grown up now. The kid who played Tom Riddle in the Harry Potter films, who was Ralph Fiennes' nephew, he's playing for West Ham's team.
What?
And as like he's apparently a supporter, I think, and as like an alumni of it. Now I randomly saw that online and I was like, wait, what? I think it was from I want to say like the 6th movie. It's been a while since I've seen the Harry Potter films, and I was like, this is like the most random like connection ever. But yeah, $1 million, and it's like really great exposure. It'll be on Peacock pretty much all weekend. So yeah, just kind of a good time to just go and watch.
So there's so many teams involving, you know, former US men's national team players. There's a whole team of US women's like alumni, which is really cool. And it's really interesting to see like how people group together in terms of, you know, on Team Dempsey, it's like Jermaine Jones, Eddie Johnson, along with Clint. And then you have Jeff Cameron and Breck Shea as like the other US team of like, right. Yeah, we're good. Like everybody else was like, yeah, we'll all be on a team. And then it was like, no, you guys are fine. You do your own thing.
The MAGA team.
Yeah. So yeah, it is an interesting tournament. Like some of the teams involved from Europe too, and some of these like alumni teams are really cool. Borussia Dortmund fielding, like alumni fielding a team. I think the most interesting European side has to be Como, from Serie B. Cesc Fabregas, who is an owner of Como now, / player, is going to be the player coach of the soccer tournament team as well. So yeah, Thierry Henry is also involved in that ownership group, I believe. So he's not playing in the game, I don't think. It's far, but yeah, Cesc Fabregas, they literally can't get him to stop playing. And I love the idea of a really well-known and like well pedigreed European player basically retiring to Como to run their soccer team. Like of all the places in Europe you could go, like I think I'll go to Lake Como. And do they also have a team I can I'll keep in shape. Yeah. So anyways, it should be a fun tournament. I'll definitely keep an eye on.
I mean, Lake Como is a pretty beautiful spot. It's where Padme and Anakin got married in Attack of the Clones.
I knew you were going that route, and I was so here for it.
Oh, man.
Well, I guess Star Wars talk is as good a pivot as any to wrap this thing up. So, as usual, we'll go to the What You Watching kind of segment here. So, start off with you, Ryan.
I'm very excited for Across the Spider-Verse, just coming out this week. I'm planning to see it on Thursday. I've actually learned that it's going to be one of the longest ever animated films of all time at 2 hours and 20 minutes. So that's like really impressive, just the amount of work that went into it. And it definitely seems like from like of all the superhero projects, this one has like the most labor of love kind of put into it, that they really understand the character and just kind of what makes us really love Spider-Man or Spider-People as just kind of a concept. So I'm really excited for it and looking forward to seeing that.
It's crazy to me that I think it's next year, part 2 of that movie is coming out, which I'm sure is going to be equally as massive. So the animation work that goes into that is nothing but impressive. Yeah, and then Phil, what you have been watching? I have a feeling I might know where you're going, but
yeah, so on the watching front, it's been this morning. I woke up and watched I Think You Should Leave, like before I went to work. Season 3 of the show came out. For anyone who is not familiar, you've seen the memes, like the hot dog guy. You've seen the guy with the fedora with the safari flaps on the back. Like there's all of these iconic sketches. this season does not disappoint in terms of matching the tone of the first two really well and adding some like new kind of unexpected takes on some of these. I think ones with mainstream appeal will be a guy on a dating competition who's just there for the zip line at the mansion. Those sorts of things. So keep an eye out for that, and it's on Netflix. And it's one of those that's just like totally crushable because it's like six episodes. They're each 15 minutes long, so it's very like just a quick watch. But tons of laughs throughout. And then I have to give a shout out as we're closing out with in terms of soccer stuff. For those watching, I am wearing a 17-18 Liverpool kit with Roberto Firmino's name on the back, and I have to give a shout out to one of my favorite Liverpool players of all time. One of those guys who, when it was rumored he was joining, I had seen him for Hoffenheim in the Bundesliga, and I was like, man, how fun would that be for him to join Liverpool? He did, and like, it couldn't have gone better, like in my wildest dreams as a fan. And he leaves as an icon for whatever he's going to do next. I think he's going to join one of the Spanish giants probably, which will be weird, but I know that that's like lifelong dream stuff. So anyways, it was awesome to see him score in his final game, as much of a meme as 4-4 against already relegated Southampton was on the final day. Awesome to see Bobby get one last goal for the Reds and send himself off in style.
Yeah, good stuff. I mean, nothing but respect for Bobby. He's a fun one to watch. So, just I guess in terms of what I've been up to, well, HBO wrapping up with Succession and Barry this week. I mean, frankly, wasn't a Succession watcher, but loved Barry. But in a couple weeks, they'll be coming back with Righteous Gemstones season 3.
Oh,
so I
so
caught
excited.
up with that. Yeah, I hadn't
show.
watched it, binged it over the past couple weeks. If you're not familiar, it's basically like Danny McBride, John Goodman running a megachurch. And so, I mean, hilarity ensues. It's crazy and fun. I'm very excited. I think we're 3 weeks out from the new season, so hyped for that.
Yeah.
That'll line up with Secret Invasion, and Eric Andre's character was so fantastic in the last season.
He's great. They're doing another I didn't realize until just now, sort of in the more Tim Robinson vein, they're doing another season of the Eric Andre show, which is chaotic and crazy. I don't know how he's able to like pull it off prank wise, given the extremity and people recognizing him, but go off king.
Yeah. Righteous Gemstones is such an underrated show for me. Like it's so good. And yeah, the whole cast of that one just is absolutely hilarious. Fantastic. And it strikes that great HBO balance though too, of you get invested in the story despite the fact that it is an outrageous comedy, like totally over the top. You still end up invested because the writing is just like that good.
Walton Goggins is so fantastic.
Oh my gosh.
He's like top notch, just playing that over the top, just kind of
Uncle Baby Billy.
He's just like that over the top, obvious grifter person that is just so well done that it's just fantastic. And you can tell this is a show that like the cast has a lot of fun making it.
For sure.
Yeah. Keep giving Danny McBride that blank check to do whatever he wants at HBO for eternity, and I'll be a happy man.
Oh yeah, amazing.
Yeah. So I think we're gonna call it a night with that. Make sure you're going and checking out the Kit Season show that we put up. Really good one this week. Check out Seriously Loco for everything that Phil's putting out there. His Substack as well. Ryan has a really good piece out this week about wrapping up the Tottenham season. A good read if you're a Tottenham fan or really anyone interested in the landscape of the Premier League heading into next year. I'm doing the usual with Backheeled and writing on my own. So check out everything we're putting out. Everyone who's on the panel here does a great job covering this sport and doing their thing. So thank you everyone for watching, for listening, following along, and we will see you next week.
Thank you for watching another episode of the USL Show. The USL Show is now proudly part of the Protagonist podcast family.
please go to protagonistsoccer.com to check out more work. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see everyone again next time.